little learning is a dangerous thing. Drink deep, or taste not the Pierian spring.
Alpha Omega. Oh boy, is this one a bit of a crazy map. People absolutely detest this map. Some people call it the worst map of all time. Normally I start these sections off rhetorically and say, is that really deserved? Well, actually no, this map is not deserving of being called the worst map of all time. But this map, for being a DLC 3, had a crazy amount of hype behind it, and due to obvious budgetary issues and other issues at Treyarch, this map didn't have enough time to be able to be polished and be able to be made as good as it could have been. However, instead of me telling you all this, let's get into this map and talk about it a little bit. Beginning us off as always the pro section, and starting us off in the pro section is the lore. So, after the events of Classified, Primus travel to Camp Edward, a Broken Arrow facility, where they need to obtain the Elemental Shard in order to build a device of ultimate power, possibly for the Great War. After arriving at Camp Edward, both Primus and Ultimus together scour the facility in search for the shard. However, after awakening a computer called Rushmore, they are told they need to do a bunch of tasks around the facility to prove themselves worthy enough to obtain the shard. Rushmore in a nutshell is like a more chaotic and funny Sophia. Anyway, after performing the tasks, Primus and Ultimus are granted access to the APD, a recreation of the MPD created by the staff of Broken Arrow, all headlined by Cornelius Purnell, who we really get an insight into in Classified. However, as we can tell by radios, Cornelius was at one point corrupted and is desperate to reach Agartha. There's a ton of story related to this and a bajillion radios, but to keep it concise, he eventually went into the pyramid, and after a shot of electricity through him, he became a being of electrical energy, known as the Avogadro. After Primus and Ultimus open the APD, but as the APD opens, a nuke drops on the facility. It goes off and destroys the entire site. Of course, it doesn't work and destroys the entire facility for naught. But both Primus and Ultimus, in a hard-fought battle, manage to throw Purnell back into the APD and transfer him to the Hanford site in Washington, aka where transit takes place. After this, Primus and Ultimus then retrieve the Elemental Shard, but not before Maxis speaks over the radio, warning them it's too late. Apparently, Monty is fully aware of what's going on with the broken cycle, and as Maxis puts Samantha and Eddie into the teleporter, Monty walks down the stairs and confronts Maxis by revealing his true form and lunging in to kill him. But not before Maxis presses a button and sends the children to Camp Edward to get them out of the house. Unfortunately, Monty killed Maxis in front of Samantha, and when Samantha arrives at Camp Edward, she uses her Ethereum powers to destroy the site even more than it already was. After this, Samantha speaks and says they're going back to the house to kill Monty and burn it to the ground, and that they're all 10 of them are going to fight in the Great War. I don't need to be a professor to tell you how good this story really is, and I'm only just getting started because this map, I kid you not, has over 3 hours of dialogue between Primus, Ultimus, which, a spoiler alert, this is the first map we can place 8 playable characters on. 8 playable characters. This is not Grief where they're all silent, no. All 8 characters with over 500 pieces of dialogue each, and looking on YouTube to look at the conversations, all add up to over an hour and a half. Plus, this is not even counting the other characters' quotes on this map. The amount of story and honestly fan service on this map is honestly mind-blowing. Every time I play this map, it's a new experience. There's 8 characters to choose from. Both Primus and Ultimus are on this map, and you can select them to be side by side in battle. You want to hear what Primus Dempsey says to Ultimus Richtofen? Well, you can do that. You want to hear what Ultimus Nikolai has to say to Primus Takio? You can do that. Unfortunately, we can't hear what Primus Nikolai says to Ultimus Nikolai because you can't have 2 of the same version of the character in the match. However, it's still amazing because even without all of that, with Ultimus talking to the Primus versions of themselves, we still have all this dialogue, all this lore, all these callbacks to previous maps. It's all some of the most engaging shit I've ever seen, and listening to the dialogue, it just really gives you a huge perspective on this map and makes you realize that most of the budget for this map went into all the characters and the writing. The budget really didn't go into the gameplay, which is a huge problem for a lot of people. However, for me, who loves the lore, I think it works so well, considering how I honestly think this map's gameplay isn't that bad. But of course, as I was saying, how the lore is fantastic. We actually don't just get radios for Black Ops 4, there's a bunch of radios dictating what happened between key moments inside of Black Ops 1. This is awesome, as it ties up so many loose ends from Black Ops 1. It's really awe-inspiring how they went back and closed all these crevices that were left back inside of Black Ops 1 and unanswered questions. It really wraps everything up quite nicely. And we didn't even talk about Rushmore or Purnell. Rushmore is a very funny version of Sophia. It is some of the funniest dialogue I've ever heard, and I love playing this map because of of Rushmore. Another reason I love playing this map is because of Purnell as well, who's the Avogadro, who I did realize I never talked about on Transit, but he sucked on Transit, so I really wasn't missing much. Anyway though, Purnell on this map is fantastic. There's a bunch of radios of him in his human form, and then when he's in his Avogadro form, he spouts out a bunch of lore about the characters when you're in the boss fight, spoiler alert. The amount of dialogue with Purnell and the characters too is awe-inspiring, considering how it's just for the boss fight at the end of an Easter egg. All in all, of course, the characters are fantastic and are written extremely well. I have little to no problem with any of the characters on this map. Anyway though, the next thing I would like to talk about is actually the intro and outro cutscene. It's no secret, of course, that the budget was slashed for zombies, so the intro and outro, especially the outro, took a huge brunt of quality. The intro, despite being in 2D, is still probably in my top 3 favorite intros of all time. Hearing Nikolai talk about what's happening next while simultaneously recapping previous events while also talking about future events is just some of the coolest shit ever. We have shots of Monty and the Shadow Man in their true forms. We have shots of the Great War, and how they managed to tell all this story in a 2D slideshow in about 2 minutes is insane to me. The intro is amazing on this map. The outro is not as amazing as the intro is. It's still really good in my opinion because there's a lot of story, and I honestly really do like the 2D slideshow, so I'm a little biased. But there's like this weird filter in the outro where it looks like the characters are they're like made of candles, wax, and then they're in a hot sun. It's so bizarre. It's a really weird artistic choice, but it's there to make it look like the characters are having expressions so they don't have to draw new images because the map was made on a 50-cent budget. So you can understand why they did it, but I don't think it looks the best, but it's serviceable for what it is. All in all the storytelling pieces on this map are fantastic, and while the location of this map is something that is far from original, I still think it's fantastic, and that the small atmosphere works really well with the amount of story and dialogue on this map, as it allows you to experience it all a lot easier. Something else you can experience super easily is the new wonder weapons on this map. The Ray Gun Mark II. Yes, it's not new, however it has completely new animations which are really cool, and when you buy this map, you actually get the Mark II on all previous Ether maps. That's badass. Think of Buried, for example. Buried had that same feature. However, the Mark II isn't the only wonder weapon on this map. You can upgrade it into 4 elemental versions. You have a dual-wield Mark II that's rapid fire, you have a shotgun Mark II, you have a Mark II that shoots an explosive shot out of it, and then you have a Mark II that's a laser that's infinite ammo. These Ray Gun Mark IIs, not only are they badass and some of my favorite weaponry inside of Zombies history, they are comically easy to build. They're even easier than the gauntlets on AE. And there being 4 of them, once again allows everyone to be able to get a free copy of the new wonder weapon. And you don't even need the base Mark II to get it. And when you do get these upgraded versions, they can be pack-a-punch. There's no upgrade quest. You just put it in the pack-a-punch machine and that's it. All in all, the Mark IIs are awesome, and some of my favorite wonder weapons inside of Zombies history. Something else that's awesome but not talked about nearly as much as the Mark IIs when this map is brought up is actually Sergeant ADAM. To keep it short, he's just another Civil Protector clone, but he has a lot of witty remarks. ADAM is an acronym for the mannequins around the facility. They're all broken arrow units that were made to be able to keep the city intact when nobody was around. There's little Easter eggs where you can see them look at you. However, the mannequins were made to never move unless somebody wasn't looking at them. So that's why this place looks really good even after being abandoned for 30 years. Speaking of this, Marlton is actually on this map too through a door where he has a bunch of dialogue to spew out. The ADAMs and Marlton, of course, add a lot of lore to this map that already had about 2 hours worth of dialogue on it, but it just keeps going and going and going. Like Origins and stuff was like a gameplay-centric masterpiece. This map is a storytelling masterpiece, which is why I like it so much. But the map itself is fun as well, so it's like a double whammy in a good way, where you have a great story and a great gameplay loop. I really enjoy it. Something else I really enjoy is the Easter egg song on this map, I Am the Well. This is by far my favorite Easter egg song, and I can never get enough of this song. It's so badass, and it has a lot of metaphorical lines inside of it. It's like being told from the eyes of Primus. The lyrics, of course, have been synchronous with the story at previous points, but here you can really see it. A broken piece imbued with fire, compelling our descent. It fell down to earth, I know not where. It's talking about the 115 meteors hitting Shinonuma. Like, that shit is so fire, man. Oh man, and then the beat goes really hard. I know music is very subjective, so I won't talk about it for too long, but I really like I Am the Well. It's a fantastic song. Something else that's fantastic about this map is Rushmore's codes. Yes, you can actually enter a code into his number pad. This is used for the main quest. However, you can enter some codes into his number pad to get some free bonuses. You can get 1,000 points. You can open a door for free. You can discount your perks. You could start the I Am the Well Easter egg song. You could get Ted from Transit to make an appearance down in the lounge area. You can have Rushmore tell you jokes. There are over 40 codes you can enter into Rushmore, and they all have varying bonuses. You can get an undead man walking for 5 minutes straight. How awesome is that? And this map is certainly not lacking on side Easter eggs as well, as there's an Easter egg where you can get a free perk or self-revive. You're going to have to choose which one you want at the beginning of your game, because around the map there'll be 30 mannequins, and if you shoot all their heads off, a perk will spawn in front of the Nuketown sign. Or if you do the same exact thing but with a knife, but after you knife off the 30th mannequin head, a mannequin will follow you and will only move when you're not looking at it, sort of being in line with the lore for the 80 AM robots. What you need to end up doing is lead it down to the generators area. And after you get it down to the room where you pack a punch, what ends up happening is you get a free self-revive, giving you 3 in solo. Very awesome stuff. And what's even more is if you do the free perk Easter egg, you actually get a mannequin round. Remember Hellhound round? Well, no, there's a mannequin round, where the zombies are all mannequins, they don't make noise, and they have about 5 times the amount of health. This round is a great way to get points, but it is unbelievably challenging. So it's like a risk-reward type of thing. Because if you go down, the round ends immediately and just goes to the next round. But this can only be activated after getting a free perk. So do you want to get a free perk but put yourself through a challenge? Well, you can decide that. And that is great design in my opinion. Remember when I was talking about mannequin rounds? Well, Hellhounds actually return here, but except they're electric hounds. They're not any different than Hellhounds that behave the exact same, except they're electric. And Hellhound rounds also make a return with the electric hound round. So you get a free max ammo every now and again, which is also nice. The next thing I would like to talk about is the map's Easter egg. This Easter egg can be done solo, so without any further ado, let's get into it. The first step is to turn on the power, as simple as it gets. It should be noted before you turn on the power, the map has a different color palette similar to Ascension. Once again, being kind of like Revelation, where it brings a lot of old features from previous maps back and just improves on it. The next thing you need to do is activate Pack Punch. Very easy. Just go down to the generator's room, activate the generator, then find the 4 valves and then turn the valves. The next thing you need to do is actually get Galvanuckles, which make a return. I once again forgot to talk about these on Transit. I'm sorry that Transit introduced 95 things, but none of them were really even that good in the grand scheme of things. But this was one of the good things I should have mentioned. Except there are only 5,000 points in this map, and of course when you get Galvanuckles, when you knife a zombie, you punch them in the face with an electric taser, one-shotting them in this game till about round 15 or 16. After you obtain the Galvanuckles, what you need to do is kill a zombie in front of a TV displaying static. What ends up happening now is that the TV will read off a bunch of codes to you. You need to take these codes down, and after you take these codes down, you need to go enter the codes that TV gave you into the clocks around the various houses in the map. This step is kind of annoying if you don't know what you're doing, but after you know the codes, and there's only so many codes the TV can give you, the step is not bad at all, and you get rewards every single time you enter a code in properly. For 4 of the houses, you get a trap you can use to infinitely kill zombies. For 1 of the houses, you get a free Pack-a-Punch weapon, and then for 1 of the houses, you get a free Ray Gun Mark II that's Pack-a-Punched already. That's awesome, and well worth this step, and something you probably want to do even if you don't do this map's Easter egg. It should be noted though that the 6th clock code actually needs to be entered in a Rushmore. Going into the 6th house that the TV doesn't specify will actually end up displaying a 6th code if you interact with the clock. You need to enter that in the Rushmore and then talk to him. The next thing you need to do is find a red Nova 6 crawler. Why not? This red Nova 6 crawler can spawn in the bottom part of the map usually. I believe it can spawn at the top, but it's very rare. What you need to do is escort this to the transfusion facility. This step is a nightmare if you don't know what you're doing, but as long as you train up a bunch of zombies and don't kill any, just find the Nova crawler and slowly escort it. It's very slow and has 1 HP. It's similar to the green-eyed Valkyrie step on Garad Krovi, but after you get the hang of it, it's not that bad. The next thing you need to do is go around the map and find 4 pieces of paper with codes on them and enter them in a certain order. 7626 always being the first code you enter. The step would be very annoying if you couldn't do this Easter egg step the second you spawn into the game. So with that alone, you can actually turn on Pack-a-Punch, get Rushmore activated, then enter in this part of the Easter egg step. So you don't even need to do it later, so it's not even that bad of a step. This will actually give you access to Surgeon 80 AM. What we need to do after you, of course, do this, activate Surgeon 80 AM to actually go up to Marlton's door. And when the 80 AM is outside the door, Marlton will actually throw a canister outside because he stole it. You then need to put this in the transfusion facility, thus completing the step. The next thing you need to do is actually get a jolting jack, an electric Nova crawler on this map, to actually shoot an electric charge at this wall right here where the server is installed. What you need to do is after that Nova crawler shoots the electric charge, which can be kind of annoying to get because it's kind of random chance, you activate it, then you need to make a beeline back to spawn. You can actually use a new type of fast travel on this map called the teleporters, which you can actually build and place anywhere on the map. Yes, you can choose where your fast travels go. That is awesome. The best thing to do here is to place a teleporter right behind you at the server and then one right around the house where you go in to activate Rushmore. After you do that and go through the teleporter, you need to interact with this wall to the right of Rushmore, and then this will complete the Easter egg step. The next thing you need to do is get Brain Rot on one of your guns, and after you get Brain Rot, you need to go up to 3 specific paintings that are glowing green, shoot a zombie, and get the zombie to show you a code. You need to do this with 3 paintings, of course, and then you need to enter the code in the Rushmore in a span of a minute. This step can be kind of annoying in solo without Winter's Wail, but in co-op or with with Winter's Wail, the step is a joke. After you do this, you actually end up having the power turned off in the map after interacting with Rushmore after completing this. What you need to do now is actually go to the bottom of the map and then find 6 generators in the various rooms in the bunker and then flip them in certain orders. The order is the same every single time, so if you can memorize the order that these levers go in, this step is once again a complete joke. The next thing you need to do after that and get the power back one, you need to actually flip the power switch, so keep that in mind. You need to find 3 sparking 80 AM units that will only spawn after this giant piece of dialogue has ended. After this, you need to interact with the sparking mannequins that have about 10 spawn locations. They all spawn at once, so that's really nice, so it's not padded out, but only one of them is sparking at once, so just find the sparking one and then interact with them. This will start a 1-minute lockdown where you're confined to a certain part of the map. This is not very hard. The 80 AM unit will actually spout out a bunch of American propaganda, which is kind of funny and very interesting, that spices up the lockdown, and it gets a really cool OST that plays. After doing this, you need to pick up the part that the mannequin drops. You need to do this with all 3 mannequins. After getting all 3 mannequin parts, you need to go to the APD interrogation area and then place the part on this mannequin right here. This is where Peter McCain from Shinonuma, his soul will be placed inside of this mannequin. Peter McCain has a lot of relevancy on the radios. There's a huge storyline for just Peter McCain that I'm not going to get into, but Peter McCain on this map is awesome, and Dempsey actually has a lot of unique dialogue with him, so you can actually play this map 2 times over with Ultimus and Primus Dempsey to hear what they have to say to Peter McCain. Very cool step overall. Then now we are on the penultimate step, where we need to actually interact with Rushmore, and then he'll tell us about an elemental orb that we need to find. This elemental orb has 3 spawn locations and zombie spawns specifically, and there is a very insane trick you can do here. But the normal way to do this is to find the elemental orb and then stay with it for about 3 minutes while it goes down to the APD interrogation area. This step is a nightmare normally, however you can actually enter 6662 into Rushmore. This will activate a 5-minute undead man walking that makes this step a complete joke. All you need to do is just follow this orb. If you miss it, you have to redo it again on the next round. It's not that bad, especially if you want to go with the 6662 method. After this, we are on the boss fight finally. Yep, we have arrived at the boss fight already. I know, it's insane how we're already here. Anyway though, the boss fight is one of the most interesting boss fights, so let's quickly hop into it. What you need to go do now is go to the APD room and then interact with this board. After this, the boss fight will spawn. You need to actually kill about 25 mannequins as they fill up a broken soul container. The mannequins, as I said, are zombies that don't make noise and have about 5 times as much health. They do the same amount of damage, so it's not a big deal. What you need to do is kill 25 of these, in which a cutscene will play of the Avogadro actually escaping the APD, and then the nuke going off. This Easter egg step is actually about 3 minutes long, so it's guaranteed for you to run out of your undead man walking, because this step takes forever. It was done like that on purpose, but I think it works really well because there's a lot of great dialogue that plays during this step, so I don't mind it at all. Anyway though, after the nukes go off and the Avogadro begins talking, the actual boss fight will commence, at which you need to go to 4 parts of the map and then activate a spare soul container, as when the failsafe goes off, it destroys all the soul containers in the APD room, which prevents Avogadro from being sucked back into the APD to get the elemental shard. What you need to do here is activate 1 of the 4 locations where these extra soul containers are and then do a lockdown. You need to kill about 25 mannequins while the Avogadro is chasing you and actually spewing out dialogue. There's a lot of cool dialogue during this step, but it should be noted that this step is very hard. This boss fight is one of the harder boss fights in Zombies history if you don't know what you're doing, because the Avogadro hits you for half of your health every single time he can attack you, and since the area is so confined and you have mannequin zombies on top of everything else that don't die easily, this step will give you a run for your money if you're not being careful. Make sure you get that extra self-revive in the beginning if you can. Anyway though, the Avogadro's attacks are very easy to dodge, and you can hit him with your specialist to stun him for a second, or the ray gun, but it should be noted you can't actually damage the Avogadro. You can only stun him every 30 seconds with one of your weapons, so make sure you make the most of that. And after you finish up the 25 soul containers, you got to do this with the next location, wherever you want to go. This can either be in the room with Sergeant 80 AM, the diner, the lounge, or the beds area. I always recommend heading over to the diner or lounge next. You can choose. After you pick your location, just activate the soul container and repeat the same thing, being careful not to die. The Avogadro gets more aggressive every single time you get through one of these steps. On the 3rd step, however, when you get to the 3rd container, the Avogadro will actually gain an attack where he can one-shot you. He'll do a bunch of flips and then charge at the player. This will instantly down you. But thankfully, this attack is very telegraphed and it's not very common, so it's not the biggest deal ever. Just make sure you're being very careful, and be very careful with the mannequins as well because of how difficult they are. Anyway, after you fill up the 3rd container, you go do the 4th one, which should always be in the bed area. If not, you're going to end up failing the Easter egg, because every single time you fill up one of the soul containers, the room actually becomes inaccessible, so you can no longer go back unless you want to instantly die. It should be noted wall buys are actually available. While they are covered in electric, you can actually remove the electric for a hefty fee. So I always recommend having your dying wish in the bottom part of the map, because you can actually rebuy your Dying Wish if you're careful enough, if you have enough points, and as long as you carefully choose where you place your Dying Wish machine. Once again, playing into the Black Ops 4 perk system where you want to choose where your perks want to be. Awesome mechanic. Anyway though, after the 4th container in the beds area, what you're going to end up wanting to do now is run back to the APD control room, in which you can actually damage the Avogadro. It's best to use your specialist on this step, or use a rapid fire gun. What you need to do is shoot him into the APD. It should also be noted that the Avogadro can still fight back, however, he cannot do the one-shot attack, though mannequin zombies are still spawning, and if you don't have a rapid fire gun, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. There is a Maddox RFB wall buy down in the generators area, so if you need a rapid fire gun, you can go get that very quickly. You cannot go back to the beds area, or you will die because you get shocked. Anyway though, all you need to do is just shoot him back until he's in front of the APD. He'll get sucked back into the APD, and what you need to go over to the terminal and then interact with it, which will send him to the Hanford site, which is the transit location. Thus playing into the lore that the only reason the Avogadro's at transit is because of Alpha Omega. Just such cool shit. Anyway though, you are actually done the Easter egg now. You can actually go up to the APD door and actually interact with the Elemental Shard, thus commencing the Easter egg cutscene. Of course, we talked about the cutscene. Despite the art style being a little on the lacking side, I still think it does its job very well. Anyway though, with all that said, that brings us to the end of the pro section. This map has done so much right. This Easter egg is perfect. I have no complaints with this Easter egg whatsoever. It's fun, it's replayable, you can do it in about an hour and 15 minutes. It's just a great Easter egg, and I have nothing bad to say about the Easter egg. It's the first. I don't have anything bad to say. I would be talking about the 8 AM step, but you can do it in the beginning of the game, so it's not a big deal. No. The clock step, sure, I guess, but you can memorize all the codes. Like, the clock step can only have so many codes in certain orders, so, I mean, if you memorize them, it's not that bad. But unfortunately, this map is not perfect. It has some problems, so let's talk about them. If Nova Crawlers weren't bad enough, if Red Nova Crawlers weren't bad enough, we have Nova Bombers and Jolting Jacks. Nova Bombers are like the Ice Catalysts, but on steroids. And they only spawn in the bottom part of the map, thankfully. And just like Classified, they only take away from the map and don't add to it, similar to the Jolting Jacks, which are the same thing as normal Nova Crawlers, except they teleport outside the map, and they have long-range attacks. And like the ones on Moon, of course, they teleport all over the place. Why do they exist? I don't know. But thankfully, this map has so many redeeming qualities about it that I can look past the Nova Crawlers, but it is very frustrating. Of course, something else that's awful is the way you pack a punch on this map. You need to do the lockdown in the beginning of the game, then you need to interact with 4 valves around the map that are spewing Nova gas. This is fine. This is okay. However, the Pack-a-Punch will go off at random points during the game. And when the Pack-a-Punch goes off, more than one lever can actually go off. And what you'll end up needing to turn all 4 again if you're doing something else. It's like the Origins Night rounds, except it can be a lot worse. Because when you turn these valves, a game actually spawns zombies in. And souped up Nova Bomber zombies as well. The ones that have triple health and do triple damage, yeah, those zombies. I hate the Pack-a-Punch on this map. It really sucks, because if this map just had a normal Pack-a-Punch machine, just like, you know, like on Horizon Drag, maybe it moved around. This map is not that big, so it's like, it would be perfect on this map to move around. I would argue that this Pack-a-Punch is a map-ruining feature. It gets insufferably bad with how fast these things can go off, and even during the Easter egg, it goes off a lot. The earlier you turn it on, the earlier it goes off. And there's no way to get around it, because even if you use a bonfire sale, it won't open Pack-a-Punch. It's just a really bad Pack-a-Punch system, and I can't defend it. I love this map, but I can't defend this bullshit. It's anti-player, it's only there to make the game even more irritating. I don't know what they were thinking. And my last con I have with this map is, of course, the fact that there are no trailers made for this map. Like Blood of the Dead and Ancient Evil and all the other BO4 maps, there are actually no trailers for this map with story. This is good to the budget. I get that, but it really sucks because this map had so much potential with story, details being shown in trailers. It's really sad. Like, can you imagine a Blood of the Dead level trailer for this map? Anyway, though, that brings us to the end of Alpha Omega. It has a lot of problems, especially with the Nova Crawlers and Jolting Jacks, the Pack-a-Punch system. But despite all that, this is still one of my favorite zombies map. In fact, it's one of my top 5 favorite zombies maps. The amount of writing, the lore, the gameplay, the fun Easter egg. The only real problems being the Nova Crawlers and Pack-a-Punch. The replayability is through the roof. There's so many side Easter eggs. The cutscenes are fantastic. And all in all, I just never have a bad time on this map. Despite everybody on this planet, except me, hating this map to a T. Literally everything I hear about this map from other people is one of the worst maps of all time. Its name is dragged through the mud every time it's brought up into a conversation called the worst Treyarch Zombies map. I'm not saying that people got their opinions from influencers or YouTubers or whatever. I don't think that. But it really does suck to see in my opinion, a lot of blind hatred towards this map. I definitely think this map is nowhere near the bottom. I can understand why it's not near the top for a lot of people, especially if they don't care about the lore, but I personally think this map is fantastic. It has so many redeeming qualities, with admittedly some really shitty qualities that do make sense why people don't like the map. But hopefully one day people will realize this map is much better than it seems. But as for right now, I guess it kind of makes sense because I did clown on some of the maps that other people like, so it only is fair for one of my favorite maps to also be hated by other people. So it is fair, but I mean, I can dream that Alpha Omega will get the respect that I feel like it definitely does deserve a little bit more than it has right now.